And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our last session of the day. I have Anara and Giovanna with me, and we are going to be exploring how fashion is going to be paving the way for the next level of e-commerce. So let's get straight into it. Giovanna, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. So I am Giovanna. I go by GG in this space. I am the head of Metaverse Fashion Week at the Decentralised Foundation, and I'm a senior producer at the Decentralised also. My background is in XR, fashion, and the arts in general. So I'm very happy to be here and discussing this multidisciplinary approach on the future of fashion.
Amazing. And Anara, over to you.
Yeah, my name is Anara Nazarova. I am the VP of Metaverse at Hype. I'm a longtime believer that emerging tech is set to transform every single sector and every single industry. So I've been focusing previously on ed tech and onboarding more and more people into the sector. So as our work at Hype, we also focus on brands and helping them understand what is their future and evolution of digitization of their products and services.
Amazing. Cool. Let's dive straight into the discussion then. Let's open up with what is Metaverse's fashion's biggest obstacle at the moment?
Should I start? Okay. Definitely, I think one of the points is interoperability in the sense that you cannot, but I think that's a very expected answer. You cannot take the same digital garments from one world to another world. And also, I feel that we need to advance a little bit more in bringing the metaverse outside the screens. I think fashion is really a bridge between physical and digital. So when we really can unlock those possibilities, maybe with more AR, more mixed reality, also, I think the fashion will even make more sense in bridging our avatar's identity with our physical identity.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, definitely interoperability, but also if we look at the history of where digital fashion emerges from, it is gaming. So we've been, training ourselves to invest our energy and attention into making sure your virtual representation is dressed to par to complete your missions. But when we look at the ease of use, if we're talking about physical clothing, there's a pretty direct utility and use case of how to incorporate those into your life. And there's a function depending on different uniforms that you show up in for your different life events. But in virtual spaces, you either need another person to hold the phone over you to see an AR overlay of a garment, or you have to use a mirror. And none of those experiences are permanent yet. So when we talk about this future state that Hollywood has painted for us through Ready Player Me and Minority Report and so on, is that there's this future state vision where these garments are going to be a lot closer to us, and they will also be observable by other people. So we are working with the skateboard version before we have the full car version of what virtual fashion is. So even though experience is suboptimal, the journey that people have gone on to figure out what is their value look like in digital spaces has already begun. So I think we're very much on the uptick when it comes to virtual adoption.
Definitely, and it is interesting about the gaming aspect as well. That is kind of where their sort of attributes on the game that don't affect your it doesn't make you stronger or anything. It is purely for like a vanity collectible. That's interesting. And why do you think that recently in the last few months, fashion, the metaverse fashion scene has been one of the biggest driving forces for the increase in demand for digital collectibles and just general people's eyes are now on Web3. There's a lot of talk going on about the fashion industry.
Yeah, honestly, because I do feel that we are coming from a wave in which the discussion around NFTs was pretty much on the art sector and also the PFP projects. And suddenly, I think the fashion community is finding their space into building more utility in the NFTs, also bringing the sense of belonging and self-expression. So, in my opinion, fashion is going to really play a big role in telling those individual and collective stories about us, right? Because fashion is a piece of art that tell my story. So I think the sense of belonging plays a big role, but also because we can bridge more physical and digital. And then suddenly, if you look into fashion NFT projects in which you have access to participating on events or having giveaways, or like it's more than just a merch, right? It's really you co-creating with that brand, you collaborating with that designer, and then you bring in that virtual collaboration to the physical world. So I do feel that more and more I go to events where you talk to even with big maisons, like big houses of traditional fashion. They're trying to look into this new world as a possibility to unlock, expand loyalty, expand co-creation, and I think that's why fashion will be so strong in bridging worlds in the Web3 space.
Yeah, I started my journey into the sector also from the AR VR perspective. Before I worked in fashion and tech and the XR sector, I was in film, theater, arts, and fashion. So I also started off my focus with storytelling, and brands are some of the best, the world's best stories. I really got passionate about the intersection of fashion and AR around 2019. I lived in New York at that time, and I thought, I'm sure this is the fashion capital of the world. So many other people are thinking about this. This surely is a no-brainer. And I cannot tell you how few examples and how few people actually were interested in that. So essentially, there were very few choices that brands had to actually access very good AR beyond Snapchat filters. There was no full body tracking. The experience in general was suboptimal. The beauty industry, on the other hand, had a bit of a better time using that because face tracking was advancing faster and further than body tracking. But when we look at really the implementation of these things, there has already gone, if we look at history, there's been several movements of digitization of products, Netflix and Blockbuster. We understand how streaming replaced VHS tapes, and there was a moment when music got digitized, so your MP3 player then completely became not necessary. And fashion knows that when digitization comes in, that's usually a pretty big shift and a transformation of an industry. They've already gone through the e-commerce transformation, which is already the beginning stages of digitizing your presence and moving away from the brick and mortar store or amplifying the brick and mortar store. And now we're in the fully digital sector. So social media, e-commerce, or Web3 commerce, or decentralized commerce is now the next phase. So I think brands understand that, and this is their beginning of their experimentation, and they're thinking about how they're going to translate their value into these spaces.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think that the demand for the digital items will ever catch up to that of the physical items? Especially if they're sort of digital twins. Like, you look at how much time people are spending online and socializing online. Instagram especially is just, I think everybody uses Instagram now. Even everyone's grandmothers are now picking it up. So, but do you think that the digital items, will ever have it as much of a popularity as the physical items, or do you think they will kind of just, move in tandem?
Well, go ahead, Inara, you go first, please.
I mean, it's a generational thing. Like, you're definitely talking about something that the generational gap is starting to get wider and wider with every new technological change. Anybody who was born in the 90s or in the 80s even, like, we're part of the very first generations to start to grow up with the internet. Now you're talking about a completely different subset of kids that are interfacing with technology in a very different level, for whom socialization is very synonymous with also gaming ecosystems and gaming environments. So if you want to, we're probably going to see that gap start to get a little bit closer in the future. But right now, it's definitely going to be a much more of a trough than a curve when it comes to adoption across generations.
Yeah, on my end, I do feel that right now, I think we're still dividing pretty much those two products, right? Physical and digital. I generally like to approach them as one. Even the virtual worlds versus the physical world, they're just a continuum of each other. And it's just really a way to expand what we imagine in our heads around us and our surroundings. So, no, I don't feel that that will be a replacement. I think that what we'll see, it's more and more those two attached to each other, and they will complement each other's story. At least that's what I feel, it's more powerful. Because if you isolate a digital asset, you maybe will not be reaching everyone, and we're going to create those isolations, generational isolations, and maybe that's not what we're aiming, right? I think we should try to bring metaverses to all the age groups. Also, I think augmented reality is becoming more normalized, like Anara mentioned. So I think this will help us to maybe bring a virtual creation to the physical world and not separating those two worlds. So hopefully it's not going to be a replacement, it's going to be an expansion of that same narrative.
Yeah, that's good. And so what do you think the digital fashion can offer that physical fashion cannot?
Many things, right? I think that digital fashion allow us to defeat the physics in the world we live in. So of course you can play with different aesthetics, you can play with different visual effects. You can also, I think, be more extravagant. I think there's more extravaganza in those spaces like virtual worlds. So maybe you can express yourself in a more free way. But I also feel that digital fashion can bring utility. So when you look into, let's say, a digital garment that will give you access to different experiences, worlds, content, courses, it's endless, So suddenly you have a digital piece that is also a key of access to several other verticals. And I think that's what I like about digital clothes. It's a way for me to express myself, but also it's a functional item that can open possibilities for me in the virtual and physical world.
I really like to look at history for this example because there was a moment when people in general, the larger population, only owned 2 to 3 garments, like certain things that they would wear to church, certain things that they wore on a daily basis, like special items that would be appropriate for the seasons. But this idea of people having lots and lots and lots of clothes is part of the mass marketing era, which is still quite novel. The last time people were experimenting with their clothing was during the Victorian era, which essentially was like 1830s, 1900s, when the power looms were invented. So it allowed fabric to be made a lot cheaper. It made it a lot more accessible. And then when radio and all types of mass marketing came around, the age of consumerism has begun. So we're now at that stage where this is starting to exceed sustainability and our limitations, and the desire to kind of want to experience the world without having to buy things, wear them for a little, for a very short period of time and then discard them is also starting to become, not a standard practice. So the things that we're looking towards is that I also use myself as a case study for this and remembering some of my own early behaviors. I remember when Tumblr was around and Pinterest first came onto the map, I spent a lot of time just playing around with looks and vibes and going through this curatorial process as part of my creative expression. I didn't necessarily need to own a lot of these things, and I probably don't even have a lot of situations to wear a lot of very high fashion garments, but it is part of my digital lifestyle and things that I really like to do. So digital fashion can also be an exploratory vessel that allows you to be in different contexts and feel like an extension of your personality. Since the very moment we started to create our first usernames on the internet, we've been painting and developing a myth of who we are and showcasing that to the world. On LinkedIn, that's from a professional point of view. On Instagram, that's a bit more private. So this digital version of you, what you as a digital self wear and how you show up is increasingly becoming important for people of all ages and all generations. So when we're looking at the path and the role that digital fashion will play, it just like Giovanna said, it will be an amplification and extension of a brand narrative. The metaverse is a space for world builders and for storytellers, and brands are some of the world's best stories. So it makes really a lot of sense why they kind of fit together.
Yeah, that's really well. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? People creating their image online, and I think especially through the pandemic, people actually started to appreciate human contact a little bit more after as well, as opposed to kind of what people were wearing. It was like, what have you been up to? And I think that the online, big brand, but it's interesting to see that some brands in the fashion media life, and they won't have any digital items at all.
Ben, I think we were not able to fully hear you, or maybe you froze. But it's just, yeah. Can you repeat your question? Yeah, please.
Am I back now?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I'm back now. So I was basically saying that, brands like Adidas and Nike are extremely proactive at the moment in the metaverse fashion industry. And it's interesting to see more and more kind of joining the bandwagon as well. Do you think that all of the biggest brands are going to join the industry? Or do you think that we will see perhaps some of the, more traditional fashion brands maintain the sovereignty of, real life stores and real life places and, not join the fashion metaverse at all? Or do you think it will be one of those where if you don't join, you will be left behind?
I mean, I think Giovanna is the perfect person to answer this, so I'll let you go first.
No, you go. Okay, I will start. I always, when I talk to brands, I always like to say that you need to make this move if it makes sense for you now, right? Because I think when brands, they enter this space without truth and not being loyal to their own values, that project flops. right? So I think that brands need to know why they're coming to that space, and that should not be a lie to themselves. They need to know why. And I think that's very important. Not every brand will need to enter the metaverse. And if they don't, or the Web3 space, and if they don't, we should not treat them as they are left out. I think that there may be some very traditional leather craftsmanship brands in Italy that they are all about the on-site experience, and they can have an e-commerce and people have to go there to discover that. So we should not always just treat everyone the same way, because I think it's contextual, and technology needs to solve a problem, not to generate problems for a brand. So from a brand perspective, that's what I really believe in. We need to look into a tool below people. People are above the tool. We use the tool to solve problems, not we try to create a problem for the tech to solve that problem, which becomes a new problem. But at the same time, I do believe that brands in general will start shifting slowly their strategies to tell more about themselves and connect better with their communities, create the sense of community, expand their loyalty programs. Maybe it's just using blockchain for law purposes, finance purposes, but they will slowly integrate those solutions in the surface or in their framework internally that probably will be connected to the Web3. So in a way, like in some shape or form, blockchain, for example, I think will exist in every corporation, including in the fashion industry. Now, if they will all have digital clothes, I think this is really dependent on how they will approach and if it makes sense to them. But I think community building is going to really be something strong, especially in the luxury fashion. I think they already have an audience that is used to be selective, to be part of something that is very niched, and that is already a match, in my opinion. And Nara, you come now with all your thoughts. Will be genius.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's not an all or nothing solution. It's not about like, will fashion brands enter the metaverse or will they not? I think, or will that like erase the function of the brick and mortar stores? I think every single technical transformation has been an amplification and extension of the reach. There is a very interesting thing that we're experiencing right now is where human biology is now not evolving nearly as fast enough as technology. So with AI coming into the picture and like all of these disruptive technological tools being on the map, be it blockchain, be it AR, VR, be it data science, you suddenly have to consider all of these tools and figure out how do they impact you in the future of your brand and whether you should be or should not be doing something about them. If you choose to withhold and not participate at all, you're risking not learning. And there is, of course, I always think about what is, or ask people who are interested in the space, what is your unfair advantage? What is your unfair leverage that you can use by starting to explore and starting your journey now? It doesn't mean you need to be entering a virtual world, or you must be interacting with blockchain, or you must be dropping NFTs, but there is a beginning for everybody that may look different. But we all know that the end outcome of the e-commerce space and the end outcome of social media being now on the map is that if you didn't participate and you didn't integrate, you were directly limiting yourself from being able to engage with your customer base. So the metaverse is a very young space. It started in the AR VR sector, but it has now fully bled into every other conversation that talks about the future of technology, and it is directly overlapping with Web3 and crypto and data science and AI. So it is a space that doesn't have a definitive flag yet. It's almost like saying, you know, what is the internet going to look like? It went through so many phases and stages, and you should just allow yourself as a brand, especially as a story-based medium, to evolve alongside this other story-based medium that is meant to provide a platform for you to extend and continue telling your story. The thinking behind what does your product look like in digital form is very important because it'll be unique to every single brand. For example, Chanel very publicly said, we want to remain a physical brand. We very much value our craftsmanship. So they're very slow and they're not rushing to the process of, you know, launching NFTs left and right because of their heritage and their origin. And people really respect that. So Web3 space is very much based on transparency and authenticity. So if there is an air about you that you're trying to capitalize on something without it being actually true for who you are as a brand, it won't be well received. So just like Giovanna said, you have to be very thoughtful about your role, your why of why you're getting into the space. And then from that point of view, start to think about your future. Oh, Ben, I think we lost you again.
I think we lost him. Ben, are you there? Hello, hello.
You might write us in the chat if you have the next question. But in the meantime, Giovanna, I'd love to ask you about your maybe predictions for the next year. We're back.
I think he's back. He's back. I'm just adjusting my table for a second to get battery. But I can answer your question.
Like you say, that is just, you've lost me again.
Yes, but you're back now, Ben.
Am I
You're back?
back?
You're back.
I can see. Hold on a second. Let me see if... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
While we're building the metaverse, we're still figuring out how to make ourselves accessible online as well.
It is always challenging, but it's all good. It's all good. So you had a question, Inara. Tell me. You were asking about prediction.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Q4 now of 2022, huge year for digital fashion. I'm just wondering, what are some of your predictions or anticipations for 2023?
So 2023 definitely is gonna be another big year for digital fashion. I think there's some projects
Surprise.
So definitely some will, like, they're like right now they're not public, but there's some projects I'm consulting that they will be quite interesting next year. But mainly we're working also in the Metaverse Fashion Week 2023, and I really want you to participate somehow and help. Yeah. And that is going to be, I think, a big event. We're planning to do for the first time a big cross metaverse collaboration in between different metaverses to really, bring fashion on a different angle, and probably in real life events. So it's going to be quite interesting the way we're going to approach next year. But I think overall the metaverse, the Decentralised specifically, we're having music festival coming up, but next year is going to be full of new tentpole events. But for digital fashion, I think we should all unite forces to make a better Metaverse Fashion Week right after Paris Fashion Week, so we close the season in the Metaverse.
Oh, that's beautiful. Also, how cool is it that there is now... Metaverse is probably one of the best mediums for young talent to break through as well. This is, I mean, a fertile ground for brands. Fertile ground. There's so many projects can showcase collections without having to get $100,000 loan to like run their first collection and then take it to like from place to place. Like, this is your debut in front of the world, in front of millions of people. So I'm very also excited about new talent launching and the strength and the connection between physical and digital starting to become more apparent. Like, how can we move and fulfill? And like, you know, we talked about direct to avatar commerce as a concept, but it's like, it's possible now. Like, we can actually do it. And I think we're now at that place where the fulfillment processes are there, the audience is ready, the brands are ready. So it's go time.
Yeah, and I honestly feel that there are lots of brands working on this idea of co-creation, collaboration with new designers, but also with their own consumers, helping them to create the collection. So I do feel that the new creative economy will have a big push. And the fashion designers, even like if you look into the new collections of physical designers, they are so metaversy. They're just one step to be able to become a wearable for gaming. And so it's really merging, and it's definitely going to be a beautiful place for new designers to showcase and to be seen and to start generating income for themselves in a fair way.
It's really an opportunity of a lifetime. Like, I think so many graduates have graduated Parsons and London College of Fashion, and now it's like you live in this moment when your skills are not only can be learned at a much accelerated pace, you can showcase your designs along brands and maisons that would be like a career moment to work for. So it's a beautiful opportunity to have a choice as well, of like how you choose to pursue your career. So I'm very, very excited about the development of the platform, and also cross-platform worlds, I think, is starting to get us closer and closer to that Ready Player One promise.
Yes. Ben,
Sorry,
are you with us?
We went off tangent to self-moderate for a second.
We kept going. Are you there with us, Ben?
It reminds me of that meme of like, oh, do you think Ben is here with us in the room?
Maybe, I don't know if we should proceed maybe with questions. Do we have, I don't know, because I think our time also is short.
Yeah, I mean, I am super excited about the opportunity to amplify certain lifestyle choices. Because, like, for example, if we think about, I always bring this up, Red Bull as a brand, yes, they sell a beverage, but a lot of the times the way they showed up in the world and for their audience is by supporting a specific nocturnal lifestyle of extreme sports, like sponsoring X Games and like giving people a chance to be creative. And I think that's what brands actually have an opportunity to do in the metaverse, is that there's a certain lifestyle, a certain type of, certain type of woman, a certain type of scent that inspires you to become and step into that image and that story. And this is now us being able to not just look at campaigns or images in an airport and see this like, famous celebrity, but now we're able to step into these narratives and play a role in them ourselves. So it's like theater / real life, and just a lot more interactive formats of discovering products.
Yes, absolutely. Ben, are you here with us? Do you have final considerations or thoughts? I think Ben is really, really. Hello,
I'm
hello, Miles.
struggling.
Hi,
Miles.
Miles here from the Tech Circus team. I was sitting in the background, but I thought it's probably best I do just dive on. I actually only caught the second half of this panel as I had to fly off for another meeting, I'm afraid. But I'd love to, in terms of final takeaways from each of you. I mean, where do you see the kind of next steps for brand adoption of metaverse, and how do we kind of get the barriers down for the on ramps for brands, especially in the fashion space, to actually be able to adopt metaverse fashion and utilize NFTs and bring this to their consumer base?
I think it's one of those chicken egg situation right now. I think a lot of brands they have a problem that they want to bring their consumers, but that those consumers are not there in the metaverse, but they have a story to tell in the metaverse, but they don't have users yet. So I think right now brands they need to come to that space in an experimentation mode, trying to connect what they have physically with the digital. And at the same time, the tech communities, like the engineers that are behind this whole framework we're building, we need to stretch the boundaries, the quality, keep working on the user experience and facilitating. See, I think, for example, MetaMask accepting credit cards is a very amazing way for our parents to start buying crypto, to start having a digital wallet. We need to work also in having a massive adoption and accessibility of those worlds for those brands to be able to do like really sales in the metaverse. But for now, I think they already can do a lot of bridging with digital projects and products. And also, I think doing cross metaverse, not waiting for the technical interoperability, but really do cross metaverse activations is a way for a brand to strategize in different communities and reaching more users. So I don't know if I have a really straight answer, but I think those are the ways to go to succeed in the next months, not even years, months.
Yeah, on my side, double click on everything Joanna just said, but also innovation is just a high tolerance for risk. Anybody that considers themselves an innovator or head of innovation or somebody who's trying to do something new for the first time is just a massive risk taker. So one, these people need to be celebrated because they're in a space that requires a lot of winning hearts and being able to create a win-some situation for certain projects to succeed and take on that burden of that transformation onto themselves. But then also we have the benefit of having seen internet transform over so many, like several decades now. So like we've seen what e-commerce did. We've seen how social media evolved, and there's always the same narrative. E-commerce, nobody's going to be buying perfumes online because you must smell them. We've figured that out. Or social media, it's only a platform that is too informal for brands to be on, and it is only for younger consumers. There's always those initial assumptions that we make, and we see that when there is a digital revolution that's happening that is going to impact the layer of infrastructure of how services are delivered, you better believe it's going to impact you in one way or another. So you can choose to partake in that, or you can choose to wait and then have to play catch up down the line. Either way, it's going to be an investment. It's just going to cost you. The price tag is going to be different. And also the learnings that you get to absorb from your experiments and your attempts are so much more valuable than whatever money can buy. So nobody is even talking about ROI right now, because the most important thing you can do is build up an unfair advantage to be able to succeed in the future of that space. Brands who completely refuse to participate in social and e-commerce I think, have made sometimes an intentional choice to stay that way, and others just kind of fell to the wayside to competition. So you have to also understand that Blockbuster was a leading solution until they weren't. Alta Vista was a leading search engine until Google came out and was a better product. So don't assume that just writing on your reputation is going to help you keep keep your footing in your industry and also win the hearts of future customers. At the end of the day, that's what everybody's thinking about, is longevity. So we're here to guide them on that journey. So thank you for creating a forum and a platform for these conversations. We hope people walk away with some good ideas.
No, absolutely. Is there the next Google of the Web3 world already out there in terms of like massive giant of the future? Is there a Web3, anyone you've got your eye on in 2023 and beyond?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not, because I think that the Web3 is not about monopolizing, it's about redistributing. So if there is one, we should not allow that. Bye.
Well said.
I think that is the dream. The decentralization is definitely a dream of equity, that everybody is able to have and build a life and a product and a service that is in harmony with everything else. We're trying to mimic nature, which is the most technologically advanced system known right now to man. It withstands all types of hardships, and it's able to bounce off of its ability to have a very diverse ecosystem in order to evolve. So I think we're reaching that point when the internet is not going to be about the few players, but about everybody's participation and thriving.
I look forward to that happening.
Me too.
Well, thank you so much. We've got Ben back visually and audibly, it seems, but
unlucky.
I'll pass you over to Ben to just close up.
Well, I know, Gigi, you've got to head off. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for coming along today. It was a great chat. Apologies for the internet connection.
No, it's fine.
Thanks, Mars, for stepping in again. And
right.
yeah, we'll see you at the next one. And thank you everyone for tuning in as well. We've got a speed networking session now if you want to stick around. Yeah, another thank you to the speakers. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Bye bye. Ciao.